Hi, so I'm going to have a quick look at difference and difference. Just going to do it at sort of a macro view and try and understand what it's getting at. I won't do anything about the regression or anything like that. I'll just try and explain the concept broadly. Okay, so before I get into it, there's a couple things we need to go over. Firstly, we're looking at two different groups of individuals here. The first group being the treatment group. Now, the treatment group will eventually receive the treatment. Okay, we say that the treatment gets introduced at some time, and before that time, we refer to that time for treatment as pre-treatment time. So this kind of column here is time. So we have pre-treatment time, and then we have post-treatment time. And as we can see, I'll just label this group clarity. So this is a treatment group. Before the treatment's implemented, they are untreated. After the treatment is implemented, they are in fact treated. Okay? In contrast, we have the control group over here, and that control group is going to be untreated both before the treatment gets implemented, but also after. Okay, so the control group will never be treated. Okay, so they're untreated both before and after treatment is introduced. If the time is kind of weird to think about, say I push some sort of a social policy out in 2010. 2009 is pre-treatment, 2011 is post-treatment. Okay, cool. So I'm going to move on to this nice graph here. This is quite a common one with explaining difference and difference. So firstly, have a look at this bottom line here. This is our control group. And let's talk about the axis control. So y-axis outcome, this can be really any outcome variable we like. The x-axis is going to be our time in this case. So we might be wondering, what is this line here? What's this vertical line at for? So what we've said here is that the treatment is actually introduced at times equal to 4. So all time before this is pre-treatment, like we talked about before. So we can see that both groups, this is control and this is the treatment. Cool. So we can see both groups actually are trending up in this outcome variable, and from the diagram it seems that they're both trending up at exactly the same rate. Okay, so we have pre-treatment, and then after this time of 4, the treatment has been enacted. Okay, so this is our post-treatment like we talked about, and what we can see, that control group's trend, this line is maintaining its gradient. It's staying the same steepness, okay? Because this is the control group. They're not going to get treated. So nothing really changes for that control group. But on the other hand, we have our treatment group, and at time equals 4, the line actually becomes steeper. So what is this dotted orange line? This is what we call the counterfactual. Long word. I really gotta get a tablet for this stuff, hey? Okay, yeah, so that's the counterfactual. Now, the counterfactual is assuming that this trend from before the treatment is constant, and the line just keeps going like this. Okay, so that's the counterfactual. We don't actually get to see that because the treatment group obviously gets its treatment, right? So yeah, that's kind of unseen. We're making the assumption that that trend for the treatment group we see before the treatment actually carries on until after the treatment. Okay, so this gap here, this is the intervention effect. Okay, because even without the treatment, say at this time, I don't know what this time is. Let's use a different color for this. Let's go red. Even at this time, without the treatment, it would have been here. Okay? According to our counterfactual, the outcome variable for the treatment group would have been here, even if the treatment hadn't been implemented. So the difference between what actually happens, this point here, and what we expect to happen based on the counterfactual is the impact of the treatment. Okay? The treatment is not this whole gap here. Okay? Because the treatment group is, in this case, already at a higher level than the control group. Okay, so even if we had no treatment, there's still going to be a difference, and the difference is actually this. So this difference exists even without the treatment being implemented. Okay, so we have to look at this here for our intervention effect. That's the actual impact of the treatment. That's generally speaking what we're going to be interested in when we're looking at some sort of policy impact or something like that. Okay, so that's how that diagram works roughly. Just remember, that line is the counterfactual. That's what happens with the treatment. This is the control here. It's straight because it obviously receives no treatment at all, and there's no change like that. Okay? Okay, cool. So just finally now, I'll look at this sort of table example. This is another kind of quite common thing to see when you're learning about difference and difference. So let's have a look at this one. This is the sort of the general form, and it's obviously algebraic. Yeah, so let's look at this. So we have a before treatment. Whoops. We have a before treatment. So that's just pre, and this is post, like we saw before. Okay. So what this shows is this is the treatment group's value before the treatment. This is the treatment group's after. The change from before to after the treatment is what's interesting. Okay, so this is after treatment. This is the treatment group's variable after treatment. This is before. Okay, so this whole thing here is the change with time. Change with time and treatment. Because they receive treatment in that time, okay? Because they are the treatment group. I'll leave that as true. Okay. Same for the control group. Let's say, yeah, so we have after treatment again, and we have before treatment, and then once again we have a change. This is just a change with time because there is no treatment. Okay. Okay. So this is what we kind of call a difference. So this sort of column here, kind of our difference column. Okay, cool. So what we now have on this sort of bottom row is the difference within the period. So this is the difference between the treatment and the control group. T is just treatment, C is just control in that period, so before. So this is the gap between the treatment and control before the treatment. This is the gap between treatment and control after the treatment. Okay. Now, the difference in the differences is what we're interested in. Okay, so we have one difference here, and we have another difference here. And we're actually interested in the difference between these two differences. Okay, and that's where difference and difference comes from. So we end up with this. This is kind of the important formula. And that is the size of that's our treatment effect there. Okay, so it's actually the difference in time for the treatment group. I won't actually label that, but it's the difference in time for the treatment group minus the difference in time for the control group. Okay, it's a bit vague, and it's hard to explain with just algebra, so I sort of plugged up this nice little numeric example. So here, let's look at the treatment group first. Before treatment, we have a 90 outcome variable. After treatment, we have 100. So the difference in time for the treatment group, the difference in time and treatment, is 10. So after treatment, they've gained 10. All right? Let's look at the control group now. So it's gone from 40 to 60. The difference is 20. So the control group during this time has gained 20. Okay? The treatment group has only gained 10. So that implies that the treatment has actually minus 10 of the outcome variable for that treatment group. Okay? Because we assume that treatment group experiences the same trend as the control group. Okay? They must experience the same trend. That's kind of the strong assumption that we need to make for differences. So they've only gained 20. Sorry, they've gained 20 in the control, and they've only gained 10 in the treatment. It implies a difference in difference using the formula we did before. So here we calculated this. Just let's refer back to the general one. the difference in time and treatment for the treatment group is 10. So DiD is 10 minus the difference in time for the control group, 20, equals minus 10. What we see here. Okay. So that's the size of the policy impact. Okay, so the policy impact actually leads to a negative outcome variable for the treatment group here. Okay, so that's sort of the overview of difference in difference. It relies on the treatment group having the same trend as the control group, and then we kind of compare. You almost compare the trend over time between the treatment and control group, and you see how that treatment group's trend differs. Okay? And we assume that to be the result of the treatment. Now, there's a lot of assumptions that need to come with this, and you can probably think of some already, but I'm not going to go into detail about that here. This is kind of just about giving a high-level overview of exactly what's happening. Yeah, cool. Oh yeah, just a reminder, so this change with time is basically that upwards trend we were seeing in our previous one here. Yeah. So we're experiencing some sort of a trend already, so that change with time could be upwards, could be downwards. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll try and do some examples of this at some point.